Hello and welcome to part 4 of our Arceus Chronicle review series here on Sights on Sinnoh. My name is Will, and once again I'm joined by Manny. How are you doing?
Doing good, Will. I'm alive. We were on a bit of a hiatus because I was battling a really nasty cough, but here we are. We're back for part 4, the finale.
Yes, we are, and other than not dying, what have you been up to lately?
Just chilling. Got some tickets to AEW Dynamite, which is coming back here in January. And other than that, I've just been enjoying the Scarlet and Violet news that we've been getting. Have you seen the Switch console?
Yeah, the Scarlet and Violet edition, the OLED, right?
Yeah, it looks so beautiful. It's making me want to buy one, but like I said, I already have 2, so I don't need a third one. But just seeing how it looks, I don't know. I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah, I'm kind of considering it, or at least just a new Switch, because mine is, I think, 3-ish years old now, and it just, sometimes I feel like there's something wrong with it, because it'll be very loud when they play certain games, and I've been really into triangle strategy recently, and I've noticed that for that game and for Fire Emblem, sometimes it won't charge when it's in the dock. It'll still be losing battery while I'm playing it docked.
Really?
Yeah, so I wonder if it's just if there's too much happening on screen. But lately it's been better, so I don't know, but it does worry me a little bit, so I might look for something new. I don't know if I want a full OLED or maybe just a new Switch, but I don't know, maybe it's just worth waiting for next year if they announce something.
Yeah, it's just the collector in me that wants to get it, because I have the Sword and Shield Lite, and so.
Oh.
Yeah, so when they announced the Diamond and Pearl one, I was like, it looks cool, but that's not really my generation. So I skipped on that. And then they announced this one, and I saw it, I was like, oh man, this is going to be hard not to try to pick it up.
Yeah, there wasn't a Chronicles, or not Chronicles, there wasn't a Legends Arceus Switch, right?
No, but they had partnered up with someone to do like those big Joy-Cons.
Yeah, the Hori pad.
Yeah, and other than that,
Right.
I think that was pretty much it for Legends.
Yeah, and speaking of Legends, I have I have thoughts on again what this special was of Arceus Chronicles, because I kept going back and forth and saying how this series connects to the games, specifically the Legends Arceus game. So that's going to be at the very end of the episode, but we can actually kind of jump on in here right where we left off, which is the appearance of Arceus in front of our heroes in the flesh, as it uses judgment, and you just kind of end part 3 right there. And we get the part 4 reveal where it is just raining down, hitting the helicopter that Team Galactic was in, making them just spiral out of the sky. Manny, was Arceus trying to kill the Galactic Commanders here?
I think it just wanted to show off and didn't care who was in the crossfires. So like, I'm here, let me make my grand entrance. But it did give them a look, didn't it, before launching its attack?
I don't even know. I kind of thought I was looking at our heroes that were on Spear Pillar.
Oh, okay. Because
but
I feel like it looked at them and then it launched. Because I know that they looked at it. But yeah, because why else would it have launched Judgment Unless, like I said, it was just
Right.
making its grand entrance.
Yeah. Like, right before it launches it, you see Team Galactic looking at it, but I don't know. It's very high up and it's very large, so it's kind of hard to see what it's specifically looking at. And the fact that Judgment, like I mentioned last time, kind of reminds me of Draco Meteor, where it's just like a shower of attacks.
Mm.
Made it seem like it was very random also. So yeah, it kind of seems like it was just trying to show off its move for the first time in the anime.
Yeah, and you after hitting the copter, you can see the team members who luckily had parachutes floating down.
That was great. That was... Oh man, I love how they're flying down. And the first time I watched this, I saw the Team Galactic grunt. And I was like, when did he get there? And it wasn't until the second time that I realized, oh, that's the pilot.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so the pilot's parachuting down with the rest of Team Galactic, who very cutely actually have their Pokemon on their shoulders. Like, you see Perugly on Mars, Toxicroak on Saturn, and then I think Jupiter just holding Skuntank. Toxicroak is like half of its normal size in this shot.
I didn't notice that. Was it really?
Yeah, it's usually taller than Saturn, I think, and here it looks like it's the size of Croagunk.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny how it's a small detail, but they really wanted to just have all these Pokemon kind of be carried by their trainers, so I think they altered the sizes a bit. But in the end, it doesn't really help them at all, as Cynthia's Roserade is able to jump at the air and power whip all of them together, which is a great shot, actually. They're all just super surprised and immediately immobilized by the champion's Pokemon.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever heard of Power Whip before either. So that was, unless I did and I just forgot, that was another new move that was introduced to me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Power Whip is a very strong physical grass type move.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has lower accuracy, but it's interesting to see it used in this way.
Yeah. And then especially with like everything that's with the the game coming up, it reminded me of the new Dream Leader Arceus, because he has his Thorn Whip. So yeah, I'm just hyped for that game, and the villains finally got caught.
Yeah, they're caught, but they're not quite given up just yet, because Jupiter has Skuntank try to bite through all the vines, which is like, okay, that's fair. And it just didn't look like it's doing anything. Like, it just tries, but there's zero damage seemingly to the vines.
Yeah, so it wasn't the move. It was just like, hey, help us break free.
Right.
You wonder, like, if the Skuntank knew bite, if it would have had more of an effect, or like crunch.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's totally a possibility.
But also,
maybe it didn't, because it wasn't very effective.
True. But did the vines also have like thorns?
No, that's the thing.
Oh,
they were
didn't.
Very basic vines. Yeah.
That's interesting. Considering it came from a Roserade, you would think it would have thorns.
Yeah, some kind of aggressive texture to it. But no, it's very plain. And Roserade just kind of turns around and looks at them, trying to break out. And then Cynthia jumps down with Blissey and Croagunk, saying, "Just give it up." And I was like, what? Like, okay, that's very funny on its own, because Cynthia is very, like, righteous in this moment. And I'm like, you could have had Roserade use, like, sleep powder or something if you wanted.
Is that in her moveset in the games? Sleep powder?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I thought just found that really funny. I'm like, just give it up. I was like, you can do something more, Cynthia. Like you can, like they're not just gonna give up this way. Clearly.
Well, she probably was gonna give like a heroic monologue.
Well, she kind of does. Well, I mean, not heroic, I guess, but she does kind of explain that the dimensional gate that Team Galactic helped create is being closed by Arceus. And we go up and see them do that. Saturn's like, no, don't do that. And everyone's very angry at Arceus on the Team Galactic front. What did you think about Arceus just appearing, using judgment, and then closing the gate?
But like I've said, I think throughout this whole review series, I don't get why it didn't come out and do it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see that it was closed just like that. But
right.
At the end of the episode, which we'll get to, Cynthia,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, Cynthia does explain reasonings why. So I'm kind of okay with it now. But yeah, it closed it like quickly. So it's just like, come on, man, could have done this the whole time.
Yeah, like, and right, I'm gonna share our thoughts. I'm sure you will have them as well as we get to that explanation from Cynthia later. But the fact that it does that, and like, that's not the end of the episode, is kind of like, oh, what? Why are you doing anything else, Arceus?
Yeah.
Because we do see a shot, I guess, that Heatran is clearly still captured by the flame plate. It seems like it would be harder to close a dimensional gate than to cure Arceus of what's happening to it. Or cure Heatran of what's happening to it.
Yeah.
Right? Just like on the level of difficulty of what to do. I feel like dimensional portals are pretty high up there. I don't see many Pokemon that could close those. And as everyone sees Heatran still just like having lava leak out of it, basically, Ash says, hey, Arceus, all of us want to save Heatran. And he asks them, will you help us out? So, again, we have that explanation later on from Cynthia, but at this moment, how did you feel about Ash? How did you feel about Ash asking Arceus for help?
It didn't shock me because I guess they tried and it ended up with no results. I think they figured with Arceus' help, they could probably at least have more of a shot to help out the Heatran.
True. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, that they're like, hey, maybe if we get Arceus to help us, we'll actually be able to do it this time, because last time they did fail. I guess my instinct would have been to ask Arceus, can you just cure Heatran? like, we can help you, but,
yeah.
I feel like you're more effective, right, Arceus?
Yeah, I see your point now. Yeah, that makes more sense. You could have asked if Arceus itself could have just cured it, instead of asking for it to lend a hand.
Right, it's kind of like asking your star player to like help bring the bowls to the soccer game instead of asking them to play.
Yeah.
And all the Lake Guardians go up to Arceus and their eyes glow yellow in unison. My interpretation of this is, I have no idea, honestly.
Yeah, because the Guardians go to it, right? To kind of like translate, I think.
Oh, that's what you think they were doing, maybe?
Yeah, because it just stood there.
Yeah.
Like after Ash had asked for its help, So the Guardians went up to it, and that's when the whole glowing occurred. And then immediately after, that's when Arceus comes to them. So I took it as them, in a way, I guess, translating to it, which is weird because I guess Arceus doesn't speak human,
right?
Somehow do.
So I think it's because I see the Guardian's eyes glow yellow and Arceus has no change. My sense of confusion was is Arceus doing something to the Lake Guardians, or the Lake Guardians doing something to Arceus?
Oh, like what? What do you think?
Like, it's weird because of Arceus' actions so far. But my interpretation, if it's Arceus being the person who's acting upon the Lake Guardians, is that it's giving them knowledge to be able to help the humans, but not involving itself directly.
Oh, so it's still just gonna be there.
Yeah, like the way it's going to help them out is by giving the Lake Guardians some knowledge so that they can work closely with Ash and his friends to do it, but Arceus itself won't be involved directly. Like, I was like, okay, maybe that's the plan. Maybe it's like, hey, Lake Guardians, here's this info I just downloaded into your brains. Go help them save him with that information.
Okay. I mean, I guess I can see that, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's either way. I think it's hard to tell, but as it floats down with everyone's excited, saying, "Oh, yay, it's gonna help us." Cynthia actually goes up to it as well and says, "You came to help us, right?" So she was very confident, like, "Oh, Arceus came, like it was already here to do that."
Something like the setups just don't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a weird follow-up for some lines that don't add up given the previous ones. And then we cut to Heatran, again kind of imploding on itself a little bit before Arceus rises up and then summons all of its plates to surround it. What'd you think about that?
That was a pretty cool visual. I was kind of expecting for them to show a slot missing.
Yeah!
But it didn't look that way at all.
Right, it just kind of auto-filled the spacing, which I think is a missed opportunity, because you do see a little more of that in the Arceus and the Jewel of Life movie. It does something similar where it brings out the plates and you can kind of tell that there's some missing. But here it just kind of, oh, no, you couldn't really tell unless you knew there's a type missing. But also here, let me count how many plates there are real quick. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 plates. There were 2 plates introduced in the Legends Arceus game.
And it didn't have those before.
Correct. They were added in Generation 8, which Legends Arceus is a part of, but it's kind of weird because there aren't any Gen 8 Pokemon in that game. But yes, by the end of Legends Arceus, there are 19 known plates in existence.
19? Which is the last one?
Well, the 2 that they added in that game are the blank plate for normal type and the legend plate.
The legend plate?
Yeah, it's basically the same as the blank plate, but it lets Arceus use the power of every type there is.
So it's like all of them combined?
But kind of, yeah. It's like the ditto of all plates, basically. So, the way it works is whenever Arceus is holding one of the plates, it changes type, right? Like, as we are about to see, if it's holding the splash plate, it'll be water type.
Mm-hmm.
What the legend plate does, which is going to be very interesting for battle mechanics once we actually get held items back in games, are the legend plate allows Arceus to turn into whatever type is super effective against the opponent when it uses judgment.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. I feel like I feel like that's something Barry would use.
Yeah, well, it only works for Arceus though, so.
Well, yeah, if you got an Arceus, that's what he would use.
So again, I counted 17 plates, meaning the 18th one presumably is water that is the flame plate that is in Heatran.
Mm-hmm.
So, Manny, what I think that means is that Arceus does not have the legend plate on it.
No, because we've said with this entire series, it was never really been about Legends Arceus.
Right. Yeah, again, that's...
They lied to us. So we would have no information at all if we hadn't played the game that the legend plate exists.
Yeah, though I actually wasn't aware that the nameplate, that the blank plate was introduced in Legends Arceus. So I actually did learn that from this. But it is kind of interesting that that's the choice that they went with, that they did include the blank plate that was introduced in that game, but they didn't presumably include the legend plate. Because how else would you have 17 and then the 18th one be the flame plate?
Yeah, I think whoever drew it just assumed that all the plates were for all the typings.
Right.
Without actually knowing that the blank plate was introduced. Because just like you, I didn't know that it was introduced in the game until you told me.
Yeah, same. Like, I learned from that. So I'm curious how many people caught that, and I'll definitely ask in maybe our YouTube community post, because that's a new thing that's on the channel, and or Twitter, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully you'll see that after this video comes out. But again, this has been a lot of talk about the plates. I just found it really interesting that this is how they decided to go with it, that they included one plate but not the other. And it very well could be what you said, Manny, which is they just assumed go with what we know, which is there's one plate per type. Even though there really wasn't until the newest game. So, a lot going on there.
Yeah, because, I mean, this was essentially worked on, I think, before the game was even released, so they probably wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I am curious what the communication is like between the teams, because sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Like, do you remember for the Darkrai movie how we got a hint of that in the anime?
I don't remember.
So, when they're at the Eterna City Museum, there is a model replica of the towers that you see in the Darkrai movie.
Mm-hmm.
As they talk about Dialga and Palkia.
Oh.
It's the exact same building, and it's a really cool Easter egg if you catch it, but it shows that at some level they knew that movie was coming, that this was going to be part of it. So I'm curious how this is different, maybe because it's a Netflix thing, or again, it's syndicated differently in Japan, that they just purposefully excluded the legend plate, or didn't know and assumed there was always a normal type plate for Arceus.
Yeah.
So, very interesting. I don't see Bulbapedia mention it in the trivia at all. So, that's our trivia there. So, can't say never told you anything, audience. But, again, all this talk just to say Arceus summons the splash plate to turn itself water type, which Go does point out. And from there, Ash is like, no, don't do it. That was really funny because Ash was very amazed by the fact that it was summoning basically an ocean of water.
Go points it out. I was like, whoa, it has the power to summon an ocean?
Mm-hmm. And then Ash is like, hold up, Arceus, water caused a huge explosion last time. And Arceus just gives Ash the biggest side-eye. Which I thought was great because it just captured, like, the feeling of, kid, I know what I'm doing. So I thought that was pretty great. And then Dawn says, it said no need to worry, right? Dawn, you have no idea what it said. I'm saying that right now.
I mean, go agreed with her. It's like, yeah, that's what
he does. But I think both are just trying to cover Ash. I'm like, yeah, just like it's God. Just let it do what it's doing. Then the Guardians come up to Arceus. Cynthia somehow interprets them saying, like, yeah, let's all help out. And then Brock is like, how are we going to deal with the heat? And Ash says, we're going to fight fire with fire.
And I was like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah, same. I'm like, okay. He does ask Go to borrow the power of Cinderace and Inteleon. Or Inteleon, I don't remember how to say it. And everyone's just like, alright, he has some kind of plan, so let's just go with it. Which I'm like, this is the worst idea ever. Like, you have God here. Go with its plan. Not Ash's plan, please. Yeah. So, basically, they're all like, okay, Dawn, Go, and Ash are going to do the thing, which they don't explain. And Brock asks Cynthia, what are we going to do? Which I'm like, great question, Brock. And Cynthia says, we'll be the backup. Cynthia, Ash literally hasn't even explained what he's doing. How do you know you'll be the backup? Are you saying when these kids die, we'll go ahead and resolve the problem?
I thought you meant it like in case he trying to attacks, they can kind of like block them or whatever it plans on doing.
I would have liked that more. Like, have Garchomp and Steelix, like, surround Heatran or something. But they don't even do that. They literally just sit there and watch Ash, Go, and Dawn do their thing. So, if they were more explicit, or at least showed us what they do, I would have forgiven them more. But I'm like, you're just saying we're going to trust them and literally have no questions for Ash about this plan.
Yeah, like, Brock had a plan in, what was it, episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just forgot all about it. And he's just, like, going with the flow.
Yeah, like, it's like, alright, well, I'm not saying anything anymore.
Yeah.
And then Arceus just summons its symbols around Heatran, which look pretty cool, and then controls the water flow onto Heatran, which basically encases it in a huge bubble.
A distortion.
Maybe. I could see that. And Heatran can't get out, but it's also not exploding. Or it kind of is. Like, presumably the water is boiling, because you see bubbles come out as the lava starts pouring out of it, but the surrounding water contains it.
Mm-hmm.
And Brock and Cynthia are very impressed by this. They say, amazing, there's no explosion, and the water isn't evaporating in that intense heat. To which Cynthia says that's the power of Arceus. It even has the power to control the natural order of things. What do you think about that observation?
What did she mean by that? Natural order of things? Because the whole, like, Heatran monster isn't natural at all.
Right.
Did she mean, like, the fire isn't exploding like Ash thought it would because that's the natural order? Like, water is overcoming the fire like it should?
Yeah, like, it would make more sense if it was controlling the fire, but it's kind of just putting a lid on it, which is less impressive of its power in some ways. So it's like, you're not really manipulating the laws of physics or anything. You're just kind of very focused on making sure the water doesn't evaporate, which I guess could be it. But it's very open to interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah, cause that's kind of how I saw it.
Right. And Arceus turns around to look at the Lake Guardians, who then use Psychic to levitate our three main heroes along with their Pokemon, and just charges right over to the water. Ash does the thing! He flips his cap around in a very anticlimactic way. I will mention this. And they all just dive into the water, being pulled around by Psychic. This is when I was like, nope, I'm out. Nope. This does nothing. No, stop it. Just stop it.
Well, why?
They're diving into water that's literally boiling.
Oh.
Like, you can just see the bubbles before they even enter it. And it's very clearly being caused by Heatran.
That's true. See, I completely forgot. Like, the minute they go in the water, I forgot it's supposed to be boiling.
So right, and I'm like...
Yeah. Now I understand why.
Yeah, and... okay, they come through, and it's unclear, like, are they still in water at this point? Or are they just floating there? Because you see kind of a splash behind them as they come through what seemingly is like a wall of water.
Mm-hmm.
But then Piplup uses Whirlpool, and it's not like it's turning the water around. So it literally summons it like normal. So maybe they aren't in water. But again, if they're not in water, then they're not boiling, but now they should be burning alive for being this close to Heatran.
Well, they kind of are, right? Because of something that happens a few moments later, I feel.
Well, we'll get there. But here, Piplup summons Whirlpool, and then Pikachu uses Thunderbolt. Again, if they're in water right now, Pikachu would be zapping everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You have a good point there.
Yeah, because... so like, either way they're dead. Like, that's what I'm saying here. But this is like, that's one issue. Let's move on to what's actually happening, or what they're showing us, which is Pikachu wraps the Whirlpool in electricity, and Go explains the electrical energy is coating the water. And I'm like, but why?
Yeah, I had that question too.
Right?
Like, how is it coating it?
Yeah, and I'm like, but and even like, besides that, like, what's the benefit of that?
Yeah, because we've seen numerous times in the anime that water conducts electricity. Like, that's one thing that they burned into our brains during the series. Mm-hmm. So my thinking was like, isn't that just gonna hurt it even more? Because the whirlpool is covered in electricity.
Mm-hmm. You're just electrocuting it.
Yep, that's what was going through my mind as well.
So, what happens is it throws that water pool at Heatran, or that whirlpool, and then it glows yellow and creates an opening for Inteleon to use Snipe Shot? So, why didn't it just use it before?
I have no idea.
Well, the Snipe Shot pierces through the material surrounding Heatran, presumably hits the plate, I think? And then everyone again dives in through the electrified whirlpool, which should kill them for the second time. And now suddenly they are inside the Heatran monster, where they see Heatran being trapped by the weird threads of lava thing. Pikachu frees it with Iron Tail after they explain that they're here to help it. And then Cinderace uses Pyro Ball on it.
Yeah, and Go refers to it as a double coating.
Right. It's like now you have 2 layers on Heatran. They are using Pikachu's electric moves like they're magic or something. And it seems like all these moves should be hurting someone. Like, someone should be taking damage. I don't care who, but that does not make a lot of sense so far. And they're using Psychic this whole time to move themselves through this space. But they aren't really using that where I feel like they should, and instead they're using electricity for some reason. Like, you literally have Psychic type Pokemon with you, and they're not doing anything. Until right now, where now they grab Heatran and start to pull it out along with everyone else as the flame plate starts exploding with energy. And they're all trying to escape as they're now going back through electrocuted water as the monster of Heatran starts to explode. And they're almost out when the force of the explosion kind of knocks them off their balance, I guess? So, they kind of tumble out as even the Lake Guardians are kind of off point. But then you see right after that the Lake Guardians' eyes are still glowing. Everyone is still floating. And then Heatran just gets left behind. And it makes no sense.
I don't know. I don't know what the thinking of that is.
Right. Like, it doesn't make sense that now. Like I was thinking, oh, maybe Yuxi, Mesprit, and Azelf got kind of like caught off guard by the explosion, so they accidentally let them all go, or just Heatran. But then you see right after that they're still glowing and pulling everyone like normal. But they accidentally let go of Heatran, seemingly. And then Heatran starts drowning? Question mark?
Yes, which is why I say they were covered in water, because it's drowning.
But then the whole Thunderbolt on the Whirlpool and the whole Whirlpool don't make any sense. So, the 3 Lake Guardians then seem to focus their powers on Heatran to slow it down. And everyone literally swims, I guess, down to Heatran. So they're all holding on to it and presumably pushing and pulling it. Which again, making no sense because they're all being moved around by Psychic right now.
Yeah. See, the way I saw it was, for some reason, it was still heavy. I didn't think about it as how you said like it was being slowed down. I thought it was like, wait, why is this Heatran too heavy for Psychic that everybody has to go and help
Right.
pick it up?
But like I would buy that more if you see the Lake Guardians struggling, but
They weren't.
they weren't. Yeah.
No. And
It's
it was three of them. You would think
hmm,
that all three using Psychic
yeah,
wouldn't be a problem.
right. Like I would have liked it more if maybe the Lake Guardians get knocked out by the explosion and then Arceus has to switch to Psychic type. And that's what really speeds up Heatran's explosion. Because it changes to Psychic type to rescue them, but that means that it can't contain Heatran anymore.
Well,
If we're going by like plate limitations or whatever. But no, they just speed up. What did you say?
I said instead we got the kids and the Guardians doing all the heavy
Right.
lifting.
And the flame plate basically lets out all this energy. The water goes straight up in the air, and then Heatran just absorbs the flame plate back into itself. Meaning the set is complete, though we know that there's supposed to be a legend plate that is not here. So, we'll see how that turns out. But Heatran is then woken up by everyone, so they thought it was dead for a second, I guess. Arceus...
With its eyes open.
Yeah, its eyes don't change at all, is what I'm gathering, I guess. It doesn't have, like, eyelids, I think.
Yeah.
But then everyone is like, yay, thanks Arceus for helping us. All the Lake Guardians are very cute and wave goodbye to our heroes. And as it starts floating away, Saturn's like, wait! And Arceus actually does turn around and looks at them. All of the Team Galactic members still tied up.
Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard.
I did like it though. I was like, okay, good. Don't just leave them on the side for no reason. They started this whole mess, so we need some closure. And what we get from them is saying, you go to the other world at will. Other world, I guess, is that dimension on the other side of the gate. And Jupiter says, we need Master Cyrus with us, so tell us what you know. And Arceus is like, nope, bye. It keeps floating. And Saturn is very intense about this, saying, we need Master Cyrus. And he looks very sad. And Cynthia... Cynthia has, like, the most condescending monologue here.
It was so weird because it didn't feel like she was addressing Team Galactic.
No, right. Like, those lines feel so arbitrary. It's very bizarre. She says, here, I'll read it. We're never alone. Arceus is always watching over us, hoping people and Pokemon work together, overcoming any problems that may appear. And even when our combined strengths are enough, Arceus is certain to provide hints to guide us to find the solution. Arceus then opens its own gate and disappears with the Lake Guardians. But Cynthia keeps going, saying, but those problems, we must deal with them. We must overcome them. That's why Arceus ultimately left Heatran's rescue in our hands. Which, like you said, literally does nothing to address Team Galactic's plea.
No, but we do get at least the reasoning for Arceus not doing anything until the end. So it's pretty much like, hey, I'm just gonna give you hints as to what you're supposed to do, but not really help out because it's your, I guess it's your duty.
It's your fate? Or it's your responsibility, maybe?
Your responsibility, but I'll be here just in case anything goes haywire, which I guess during the conclusion was too much for the kids to handle. So it finally stepped in after just watching everything go to turmoil.
Yeah, the thing is, with that philosophy and that message, that's basically what Team Galactic was doing the whole time. They were literally taking control of the situation completely by themselves. Right? Like, they didn't have Arceus' help at all. They were able to open a dimensional gate using their Pokemon Heatran and the Flame Plate. And they're being punished for it, weirdly. Ultimately, I guess. Like, sure, they of course caused a ton of destruction, but the message doesn't seem to carry over to their actions.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess, end of it, like, Galactic just didn't matter. The focus was more on the kids now.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like, in general, that message on its own is fine, but the context is incredibly hypocritical in my view.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, with all this, Cynthia says to the police who are flying in on their helicopters, this case is closed thanks to the bravery of several trainers and Pokemon, which activates something I wasn't expecting, which is Brock.
Yeah.
What'd you think about this?
It wouldn't be an episode with Brock if he didn't hit on anybody.
He pulls out the bouquet of flowers, his eyes become hearts. Cynthia's very surprised by this. And Brock says, like, oh, you called me brave, and to celebrate the closed case, we should go on a date. But Croagunk poison jabs him immediately, and he goes, I'll take that as a no, as he's dragged off.
Yeah. And this is also Go's first time witnessing this. So he's like,
yes.
Hey, is Brock gonna be okay?
Yeah! I did like that. I always like the reactions that we see from characters more than the actual event of Brock doing this.
Yeah.
And I was a little surprised that Cynthia was so off guard about this. Because he's done this before to Cynthia. And back then, she actually kind of calmed Croagunk down before he could do anything. And was pretty much unfazed by that. I'm going to maybe link to that video again, but in case I'm misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went down the first time.
I think it was probably because, like, they were too caught up with everything that was going on. Because when she comes in, he doesn't hit on her at all in the battle until after everything was done. So I think that's why she was like, oh, you're doing this now?
Maybe, right, but I still feel like Brock wouldn't do it by this point at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's met her several times, and he's never done that. Well, except for that first, well, he's done it the first time, but then, like, she very much ignores him completely.
I guess he wanted to try one more time. Just to sure.
Maybe, I guess. I mean, it really... ultimately, it's because it's a throwback, right?
Yeah.
So, it's whatever. Like, I would rather they don't show that side of Brock as much as they can, but... I don't know. I guess they just wanted to include that since we don't know when the heck we'll ever see Brock again. Then we see our heroes look over Sinnoh, which is kind of cool. Except we don't really see Sinnoh, you mostly just see clouds and mountains. And then Dawn comes up to Ash and says, yeah, Ash? And he goes, yeah. And they just give each other a high five, along with Piplup and Pikachu. The episode closes with a narrator saying, this research investigation turned into a surprising adventure, and thanks to everyone's efforts, we were able to save the Sinnoh region. we get this shot of a molten Heatran husk, which to me is terrifying.
I didn't see it.
It's like for a split second, as the narrator's talking, you just see this like metal statue of Heatran, basically, of its like monster form. And you see it later on during the credits in art form, and it looks way better there than here. Here's just very like terrible looking, like very purposefully like bad. But it's like, for me, Arceus should have cleaned that up. Like, take that with you, buddy. We don't want that here. And that is the last thing we see before we go back to the village. Which brings me to my prediction from last time. Do you remember what that prediction was?
That Arceus would be the one to save the day?
No. Well, I don't remember that one specifically, but my prediction was that for the village, we never see that again. We never go back there.
Okay, yeah.
I'm half right. Because what did you think when we first saw this village right here again?
I thought they were going to show the kids again, like, enjoying in the festivities.
Right, they go back and, like, relax, celebrate, that they saved the day, all that stuff.
Yeah,
same.
And play with their Pokemon that they caught. Seen again.
Yeah, I have the same thought as we first look at this, and then suddenly it shifts, and you see it change. There's less people, the road looks a little different, the buildings are a little different, and then running through all these still people is our protagonist from Legends Arceus, who jumps into a building and is crafting a wooden Pokeball. He's very excited about it, and then runs into the field with all the starter Pokemon that we saw. Very reminiscent of the first area of Legends Arceus.
Yeah, they showed Ray.
Yeah, Ray, R-E-I. I'm pretty sure that's Ray.
So
and
we did travel back in time, but just at the end of the episode.
With literally zero connection other than Arceus flies over him as the narrator explains that Pokemon have been thriving with humans for a while, since ancient times.
Yeah, and once again, does not refer to it as Hisui, but as ancient Sinnoh.
Yeah. And then we see a shot of Arceus' booty as it gallops/floats up to Mount Sinnoh. And that is it. Then credits roll, we get a bunch of sketches, I guess, from the series, the special. That's where I saw that Heatran statue, and I was like, what? When did we see that? And it's literally for like a second during the show itself. And that's it. That is part 4 of the Arceus Chronicles. Manny, do you want to give us a rating for part 4, and then I'll do mine, and then we can do our overall rating for the series?
Yeah, so I think this is probably the weakest one of the 4.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it just like, I don't know. I feel like everything that led up to episode 3 was great.
Uh-huh.
Like the whole, like Ash's plan, like, hey, let's coat this in thunder. But isn't that going to do more damage?
Right.
Let's put it in fire and thunder. But isn't it hurting? And not only that, but they give Arceus the credit for saving Heatran when they're the ones that did. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it feels like it's the weakest one of the 4. So I'll just give it a 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, okay.
I'll go with a 3. What about you?
I was gonna give it a 6, but
Oh,
I don't know.
rate on a scale of 10, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was. I forgot we did that. I was thinking about a 5. You
Oh,
got a
okay.
5.
Do you
Okay.
want to
Yeah.
give
So yeah, I'll go with your 6 as well.
6? Okay. Oh man. Okay. Here's the thing, though. I don't know why I was gonna give it a 6.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, did I really enjoy this more than the other two, which I had a lot of complaints about? But like this one, we spent like half an hour dissecting how it makes no sense. Like, sure, it makes no sense, but it doesn't necessarily detract from the emotion I think it's trying to convey. Like, it fits for what it is. Is it completely, like, nonsensical in terms of its logic and the story progression that we're kind of going for here, especially with, like, the message of Team Galactic and Arceus and all that stuff? Yes. It's supposed to be this epic moment, and in some ways it is for Ash and his friends. So there's some weird underlying success, but at the end it's just a weird episode. So I think I'm gonna give it a 5. For the series, I'm gonna give it a 4.
Overall?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say for overall, I'm gonna go with a 7.
A 7, okay.
Yeah. Just because I enjoyed it as a whole.
Yeah,
Where I
like,
feel like if I would have watched them episode by episode, then yeah, I think I would have given it the same as you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because 1 and 2 are just so, like, so much setup, but also not in the direction it was kind of teased at being originally. And then the fact that so far I really only enjoyed part 3. It's just like, it feels like they were told to do something, and then they went around doing it in the most complicated and nonsensical way possible. They give us the first episode kind of setting up Hisui and connecting Legends Arceus to this world of the anime, and then doing literally nothing with it except for giving us a like 30-second animation at the end of this showing us old Sinnoh, which again don't even call Hisui. And then everything in between was Team Galactic stuff. So that seems like it's supposed to be 2 different series, and they just like weirdly mesh them together to give us this. Which is irritating because I love the Diamond and Pearl series. And I'm like, normally I'd be really excited to see more of it. But they just weirdly try to make this the plot and then have Arceus be in it for some reason and give Brock a hover car and then try to end it saying, Arceus is with us always, go buy Legends Arceus. So I'm just so frustrated because they tried to give us so much and it was so surface level at the end. I would have preferred if they just committed to one or the other, give us a continuation of what we saw before in Diamond and Pearl, like give us some conclusion of Team Galactic, Instead of just like, oh, no, they're out of jail, that's it. Like, there's nothing new. They don't have any interest in Hisui, they're just here for the flame plate. Or give us what I think Manny was kind of gathering from what we saw in the trailers, or just like, oh, maybe they travel back in time and see Hisui. And that's going to be the connection to the game. But you give us something that is just so weirdly forced at the beginning and end to be connected to Legends Arceus that it kind of spoils what's in the middle for me. But Manny, what are your thoughts?
When this was announced, like I said, I was excited. Just at the chance of being able to see some of the new Pokemon that were introduced in anime form, and thinking that we would get to see what Hisui looked like in anime form. But instead, we got a festival that didn't really matter because of a Pokemon and a team that had nothing to do with the game. And Arceus only being there because both the game and the series are named after it. I feel like this just could have been a regular Journeys 4-part series and not really be tied into the game, because it essentially wasn't.
Yeah.
Aside from like just the beginning and the end of the episode of the series in a whole.
Right. Like, they wrap it up so neatly that it doesn't matter. And if it doesn't matter, then just don't make it a special. Make it part of Journeys. And what you said there, I think, was also very true, is the fact, like, that it doesn't commit to Hisui. We see a second of animation showing us the Hisuian forms. And I wonder if this was impacted by their other series, their other special of Hisui and Sinnoh coming out.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about the production history, but my guess is almost that this series was going to be about Hisui, maybe involve time travel or something. And then the Hisui and Sinnoh series, which is a 3-part episode series, got announced and came out. And they're like, let's not make it contradict that. Even though they're not, like, I don't see why they would have to worry about that. They could easily say it's separate, it's its own thing. And instead change course with the Arceus Chronicles. And basically dropped Hisui from the whole thing after the first part.
Because how long after was Hisui and Sinnoh announced? It was like way after the game, right? When they had announced the massive mass outbreaks?
Was it? Oh wow, I thought it was earlier.
I think it had been a while after the game.
Let me see. So it was announced February 27th. It premiered on May 18th on the Pokemon Japanese YouTube channel. Then the second part was June 8th, and then June 22nd was part 3. Arceus Chronicles Part 1 and 2 came out in Japan January 21st, so right around the release. And then about a week later is where we got part 2, or part 3 and 4. So this actually came out before Hisui and Sinnoh.
Yeah, because when it was announced, it hadn't officially started yet. the production.
Right. Right. So, I don't know. Maybe it had an impact. Maybe it didn't. That they didn't want to make both series really about Hisui. But this is all up to speculation again. I just say it because it felt like this was the direction the series was going to go in, given the marketing and the timing for it. But then maybe Hisui and Sinnoh ended up taking the lead on being the Hisui focused show. Which makes sense, I guess. It's just so weird that they have both of these series to promote, presumably Legends Arceus. And this is the execution that we see. So, I mean, that's it. Those are my thoughts on it. Those are Manny's thoughts. Again, we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Let us know how you feel about the series. I haven't actually seen a lot of discussion of it online yet, so I am curious. I just don't want to get spoiled on it. And I don't know, have you seen any public reception to the series, Manny?
The only thing that I saw was the reveal of Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was raving about that when it had first released. So I was kind of spoiled about that because I was on Instagram and it just popped up. So that's why it hyped me up even more. So I was like, oh, so we are going to go back in time.
That seems like a very big letdown once you actually watch it.
Yeah, but other than that, I didn't see any like talk or chatter about the series as a whole.
Yeah, and I can see why. I can see why no one's really talking about it. There just isn't a lot there, unfortunately. But, you know. I don't know. I mean, in other news, there is a Marshadow event happening right now at Target.
God, have you gotten your code?
I just did today.
Oh, man. Okay, so I went the day of, like right when it started.
Yep, same.
There was nobody there. And I said, okay, well, let me just browse. And the dude finally showed up. So I was like, hey, do you guys have the codes? And he's like, yeah, I should. Let me check.
Oh.
And he opens a cabinet and he has like 4 small stacks of them.
Oh.
And he scans them with his machine. And he says, oh, yeah, I can't give them out to you till the 12th of November.
What?
And I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah. And he shows me his thing and it says, yeah, look, it says we can't release them till the 12th. And I was like, oh, well, the release is supposed to be today, to the 12th. And I even showed him, like, you know, like, the Cerebi stuff and all that.
No!
Yeah, and he's like, oh, man, like, I'm sorry, like, I can't do anything about it. Like, they told us you can't release them till the 12th. And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll come back later. But I chose not to come back because I'm like, ah. So, yeah.
Wow!
It was such a bummer. And I haven't gone back. Mostly because of fear that maybe they corrected themselves. And now if I go back, there's going to be none left.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was my trip to Target.
That's crazy. That's okay. Here's what happened for me. I show up. It's early. It's the first day. I go to the guy who's at the electronics session, ask him, do you have any of these Pokemon distribution cards? And he says, oh, because they've been like so popular and everything, we move them up to the front. So you have to go up there near like the cash register and see them. And I'm like, this guy has zero idea what he's talking about. You know why he was sending me up there? To get the TCG cards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's this. And I show him the announcement on Twitter. And he spends some time on his phone looking for it. He searches around. I think he calls someone and is like, "Oh, we don't have them in stock yet, so maybe like call back later or come back." And that's when I'm like looking on Twitter and seeing all like people were like so excited to go to Target and have employees have no idea what I'm talking about. So with that, I started a poll on Twitter. The poll is titled, Day 1 of Trying to Get the Marshadow Code at Target. What was your outcome? The options are, Code acquired. They didn't have any. Haven't gone yet. Employee go, huh? I got 181 votes on this poll. This is the most I've gotten on any poll on Twitter in responses.
Okay, which one? Man, I feel like I want to guess.
Yeah, go for it.
It's going to be between either employee go, huh? Or what was...
The other options are code acquired, they didn't have any, haven't gone yet.
There you go. Okay. Either between employee go, huh? And they didn't have any. Judging from what I saw on Twitter and from some people that I know, I'm going to say they didn't have any one.
That one got 19%.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Because I had like seen and heard a lot of people say like, oh no, they didn't have any. So if I got 19, then Employee Go How won?
Employee Go Ha won by 59%.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was a few stories in here, in the replies. One of them saying, apparently my local Target is trying to find their delivery truck.
Mm-hmm.
Another one says, went to electronics to ask, and the guy had no clue what I was asking for. Went to the front desk, and they checked their device, and they told me they didn't have any. And one that was actually very helpful, which I think might help you, honestly, though I found a slight problem with it today, is that hope this helps to provide evidence. Target put a weekly ad featuring the promotion, and they have a link to the ad. However, that link now links to this week's weekly ad, so you don't actually see it anymore. So you might need to look for the October 30th week of Target weekly ads. And there is a picture on there that literally says when the promotion dates start. So, to Manny and anyone else, I recommend looking for that and showing that to a Target employee in case you are told, like, somehow is happening to Manny's local Target that they can't give them out until after the event ends for some reason.
Oh, man. I don't know.
That's such a bad miscommunication error there.
Yeah, they should have just stuck with GameStop.
Yes, that is going to be my next poll. Honestly, forget Arceus Chronicles. This is my question of the week. Would you rather have every physical distribution be at GameStop or other stores have them as well? Because that's my thing also. Like, as much as I don't like GameStop as a company for a lot of reasons, they at least know 90% of the time what I'm talking about. Like, I've had Best Buy events where they tell me, oh, we don't have this thing yet, when it's halfway through the distribution period. So, I would at least stick with that if they do anything like this in the future again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No Marshadow for me.
Hey, you can just find that weekly ad and try it. Also, I recommend calling mine. Actually, as much as I say that, I've called twice and they didn't pick up before I came. So, that has mixed results as well. But, yeah, that's it for us today. This is our conclusion of the coverage regarding Legends Arceus. Thanks everyone for your patience. Manny is not dying anymore, so we're here and I guess excited for Scarlet and Violet.
Oh yeah. Can't wait to add Griever to my team.
No, we're trying to have you not die, Manny. This is the opposite.
Did you see the newest one that just came out?
Yeah, Gimme Ghoul?
Yeah, I don't like that design.
I don't either. I kind of like that it's tied to Pokemon Go, but at the same time, I'm like, this is going to not age well if there's a connectivity issue in the future. But that is it for me that's it for us as we wrap up our coverage on this. How soon do you think until we get a Scarlet and Violet anime? If we do.
Ooh, should be soon because Japan usually does it during releases. And
Okay.
if I'm were to make any guesses, I think Journeys is about to finish up as well.
Right.
So, yeah,
Do you
it should
think
be soon.
the new name will be Scarlet and Violet, or will it be something not related to the games like Journeys?
That's what I'm completely curious about because
Same.
in Japan it's just right now it's just Pokemon. And yeah, so we know the whole concept is like him, traveling. If it is Scarlet and Violet, he already went to school in Avola. So I don't know if the school concept would be brought back for that anime. But they skipped Gen 8, so we didn't really get to see a lot of those Pokemon.
Yeah! I'm glad we agree there, yeah.
Oh man, it's hard to tell.
So, yeah, I'm also very curious because they were so consistent for a long time, literally all the way since Diamond and Pearl till Journeys, to name it after the games. So, this is going to be interesting either way what they do. And I think I've shared this hot take before. I don't think it's really a hot take, but my interpretation of Journeys is that it's not an adaptation of the Sword and Shield games. It's an adaptation of all the mobile games like Pokemon Go and Pokemon Masters EX. And yeah, that's just because of all the cameos, appearances, and like all the character stuff rather than the Pokemon world stuff. But, that's... I've watched a little bit of Journeys while I've had my Netflix subscription for Arceus Chronicles. And I'm still going to cancel my Netflix. So that's kind of my thoughts there. But I don't know. Let me know how you think. I might stay on if we do see the battles come in. I'm curious how the Cynthia battle goes with Ash. I've heard a lot about it. And I don't want to set expectations too high, but it is something that I would have loved to have seen in the Diamond and Pearl series. So maybe this will...
The battles have been great.
Really?
Yeah, that's one thing I love about Journeys. The battles have been amazing.
I've seen some of the battles, and they've been all very disappointing to me. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe these ones are a bit different. But anyway, I've been Will.
My name is Manny.
And unfortunately, we did not really get to say hello from Misui. But as always, we will see you in Sinnoh here on the channel. Feel free to like and subscribe. And right now, at the time of this release, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Diamond and Pearl Battle Dimension are on Pokemon.com if you want to go watch them. And then listen to our reviews here on this channel and Spotify. Until next time, we'll see you in Sinnoh.
Later.